All right, let's talk about something that's becoming absolutely essential for any data engineer today. How do we build data systems that are, greener, fairer, and just better governed? This isn't just about feeling good. It's about building smarter, more efficient, and way more responsible technology.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? We spend so much of our time fighting fires that users can see, like a slow dashboard. But the real monster in the closet? It's often the invisible, wasteful data pipeline, chewing up resources and money in the background.
So, to make this all really concrete, let's walk through a case study. We'll call it Hungry Now. Picture a super successful food delivery app, right? It's got over 500,000 customers, it's processing over 50 million rows of data a week, but under the hood, the whole data stack was becoming this inefficient, expensive, and frankly, risky mess. So how do you even begin to fix something like that? The trick is to stop just patching individual problems and start using a real framework. For the Hungry Now team, that framework was a standard called K7. So what is K7? You can think of it as ESG, environmental, social, and governance, but built specifically for us, for data people. It's all about building products that respect the planet, the people using the data, and the policies that keep everything safe and ethical. It's about putting a conscience into our code. And this whole framework really rests on three big ideas. First, environmental. Pretty simple. How do we reduce our energy use, our waste, our carbon footprint? Then there's social. That's the human side. Are our models fair? Is our data private? Can everyone access our tools? And finally, governance. This is about building the rules of the road right into our pipelines. So let's see how Hungry Now put each of these into action. First up, let's get into the environmental piece. How did the Hungry Now team actually make their data pipelines greener? Okay, so their first move was surprisingly simple, but the impact, it was huge. They focused on choosing the right file format. I know, it sounds almost too basic, but the effect it had on efficiency was just massive. And here's why. They switched from messy JSON files to a columnar format called Parquet. Now, think about it like this. Reading a JSON file is like reading an entire phone book just to find one person's phone number. But with Parquet, the query engine can just go directly to the phone number column and ignore everything else. That one change just massively cut down the amount of data their queries had to scan. It's a game changer. But it wasn't just about storage. The team also rethought how and when their pipelines were actually running, because having compute running 24/7 is a huge energy vampire. This led to this really smart three-step strategy. First, they looked at driver GPS data. Instead of a constant, energy-hungry stream, they moved to 5-minute batches. Users didn't notice a thing, but the servers sure did. Next, they enabled auto-suspend on their warehouses, basically telling them to turn the lights off when nobody's home. And finally, they set up automated lifecycle policies to move data from expensive hot storage to cheaper archives and eventually just delete it. Okay, so that's the planet part. Now let's dive into the people and policy side of things, the social and governance pillars of K7. This is where data engineering has a very real, very human impact. For fairness, they actually tested their models to make sure they weren't biased against certain neighborhoods. For privacy, they anonymized user IDs and fudged the GPS data a little to protect individuals. And for accessibility, they made sure their dashboards used colors that people with visual impairments could actually see. These are all conscious engineering choices that make a huge difference. Which brings us to governance. And I know, when most engineers hear that word, they think paperwork, right? Legal documents, compliance meetings. But in this framework, it's the total opposite. It's about taking those rules and building them directly into your code. It's not a policy you read, it's a practice you engineer. And this timeline shows exactly how they did it. From day one, they only collected the data they absolutely needed, nothing extra. After 90 days, old reports were automatically archived. At the 12-month mark, sensitive GPS data was automatically deleted to comply with GDPR. And all along the way, security was baked in. Encryption, least privileged access, the whole shebang. So we've seen everything they did. Now for the really fun part. What was the actual, measurable impact of all this work? Did it, work? So just a quick recap of the before and after. Before, you had warehouses running all night, these massive JSON scans, wasted compute, you get the picture. Afterwards, you have smart auto-suspending warehouses, efficient Parquet files, micro-batches, and automated data lifecycles.
A clear set of problems met with a clear set of solutions.
And here are the results. Just look at this. The difference between the before and after on these key metrics is, well, it's not a small improvement. It's a cliff. The drops are staggering. Let's break down these numbers.
First off, a 72% reduction in the data they had to scan per job. 72%. That is the raw power of moving to Parquet and partitioning your data properly. Next up, they cut their most expensive storage costs by 45%. That's a direct result of those automated lifecycle policies kicking in and doing their job.
And finally, a 31% cut in raw compute hours. That's from smarter pipeline design and just turning off the stuff that wasn't being used. It all adds up to this massive, massive win.
But look, this story isn't just about Hungry Now. It's really a playbook, a set of moves that you can use in your own work starting tomorrow. And this is probably the most important point I want you to take away from this. Doing this kind of work is no longer a nice to have. It's a core responsibility for a data engineer in today's world, and it's something employers are actively looking for. This is a skill you need to be showcasing. So, how do you talk about it? Here's the exact language you can steal for your portfolio. Instead of just saying, I worked on pipelines, you can now say, I migrated tables to Parquet and it reduced scanned bytes by 72%. Or, I redesigned a streaming job into a microbatch process and it cut compute hours by 31%. You see how much more powerful that is? It's specific, it's quantified, and it proves you know what you're doing. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What's the biggest sustainability win you've already had? And, maybe more importantly, what's the next big wasteful mess that you want to fix? Now go build something better.